Hi, Sarah from the upcoming. Pleasure to meet you.
Hi, pleasure to meet you.
I mean, I'm still an emotional wreck from watching the film this morning, but for people who haven't seen it, what's it all about?
It's a father-son anxiety movie about chaos, addiction, love, and family, anger, guilt, shame. Yeah.
It's based on a true story, so how did you first come across this and get involved with it, and what was the process of adapting that for the screen?
Well, I wrote this novel, Candy, a long time ago, and then I wrote the screenplay of the film, Candy, which was kind of about my life as a heroin addict in my 20s. And so then somehow I was like, well, that guy, he knows a bit about drugs, let's throw him the books. And I actually thought, I don't want to do another film about drugs. And then I had this, then I had an email from my dad about how proud he was of me, and it was totally out of the blue, this email. And it made me think, you know what, I should really try hard to get this job. Because in Candy, I avoided, there's nothing about the father-son relationship. Because when I was writing it, I just found it too problematic to write about. So suddenly out of the blue, there was this chance to go, okay, maybe I can put my input into a story about a father and a son.
And it's kind of a dream cast that have taken on these roles, and they've really shown commitment to it. So how is it having them tell this story?
We're blessed to have those two, to have Steve Carell and Timothy Chalamet. Timothy at the time was kind of unknown. I saw Call Me By Your Name, and like everyone else, I was like, oh my God. And getting Steve was just like a coup. We already knew that he could make the transition from comedy to serious drama. But like, you know, the guy in Foxcatcher is kind of a lunatic, whereas this guy is a father filled with love and a very normal, everyman kind of character. So it was, maybe that's Steve's first lead role that is just a completely normal person up against very abnormal circumstances.
And just very quickly, what's the significance of this film? Why is it important?
Well, I hope it's just a good film that is an emotionally gripping experience, but also it's really affecting people whose lives have been touched by addiction. And what we're finding is that almost everybody is only 1 or 2 degrees away from that kind of chaos of addiction. Yes, it was very challenging because adapting one book has enough problems of its own. But adapting 2 completely separate narratives, the challenge was, how do we make this feel like one single film and not 2 separate stories that we're schizophrenically kind of jumping between? And so, yeah, we went through a lot of drafts of working out what should stay, what should go. How do we keep it feeling like it's just the story about this relationship between the father and the son? There's a whole lot of other stuff going on in it too. The relationships with the mothers are very important. But at its heart, it's about the father and the son, the chaos, the love, the anxiety, the guilt, the shame, the rage. And we found in the end that the love between the father and the son was the glue that held it together. Yeah, there's a lot. You know, my first draft of the screenplay was 185 pages long. More of the of his birth mother and stepmother, I would have loved to have had more of those threads in the film. And also the real Nick in the memoir. There were kind of 3 significant relationships with women, crazy and very distorted by the drugs. And in the beginning we had those 3, but the movie was it just didn't work. We had to focus down, and there's kind of just one relationship with a woman in the movie now, Lauren, towards the end. I would have liked the 2 at least. It's funny, that doesn't often happen to me when I write, and while I was writing it, the person I kept imagining as Nick was Nick's face, Nick Chef himself, who I got to know a little and who was the son. And I never had clear pictures of who would play David. When Steve Carell came along as the person, it was a revelation, because to me it was like, oh my God, that's the right person to play David Sheff. Oh, I was very proud and very emotionally, it was a very intense experience for me, because Felix makes such glorious movies. This movie, I feel, is really radiant and beautiful, and it was great seeing the end product. I would say to people that you will go through a kind of roller coaster of emotional intensity, but you will get to a satisfying place at the end, which doesn't condescend to your intelligence. I don't. It's not a problem for me. The difference between writing a true story or a fictional story, because our loyalty ends up being to what is the best film this can be. But of course, these are all real people, and so there is a moral responsibility to tell their stories, to pay tribute to the truth of their stories, the emotional truth of their stories. Yeah, we definitely. This is not a movie about judging. The world judges addicts, but the family in this film try to make their way through a trauma, and it's about love and showing up during difficult times. It's not about judging. Being a parent, I don't know. I'm not a parent. I'm sure it is the hardest job in the world. Yeah, I'm a son. Yeah, and I gave my parents hell a long time ago, so I'm sure it is true.
Yeah.
This movie is about a guy who's the father is a very alpha male. He's used to solving all problems. And he comes up against this problem that he has never come up against before, and he cannot defeat it. And a lot of the movie is about his anger in trying to beat this thing that you can't beat. Gradually, the process with co-writing the screenplay with Felix, the director, was about turning the two separate stories into the one story that feels like one film. So it's chaotic, the film, but we didn't want you to feel like you saw two separate things. And the love between the father and the son is kind of the glue that holds it together.